Welcome ladies and gentlemen, my name's Camel, and more importantly, welcome back to the Elder Scrolls Detective series. A series in which we investigate, curate, speculate, hypothesize, theorize, and quite often simply highlight and discuss cool, interesting, and hidden things that can be found within the Elder Scrolls games. Now be sure to hit up my social medias, links to them can be found down in the description along with other Elder Scrolls Detective video links that you should definitely check out after this video. Now today's investigation is a fan favorite. This is the most requested Elder Scrolls Detective video to date. And while many have covered this topic in the past, I do hope that with over 200 hours put into this video alone, we can definitively figure out what is actually happening here and who is behind it. Now this will entail the complete deconstruction and thorough inspection of Rorikstead and its people. There are more loose ends than I'd like, and many plot points go unexplained, but such is the nature of the Elder Scrolls. So let's monocle up and get into our curious case. Rorikstead, a farming village situated in the hold of Whiterun. It's the furthest settlement from the city of Whiterun while still remaining within the hold itself, as it borders the Reach to the west. Yet, while being the farthest stead from Whiterun, it still is the main supplier of harvested crops and food produce for the city of Whiterun. Surely it would be simpler to just get the food from one of the many farms that are closer to the city itself. Well, unfortunately, the hold of Whiterun has poor soil. It's a barren tundra, with shallow rocky soil making up the vast boreal plains. Not much can grow here, hence why we see so few trees. This, of course, makes it hard for farms to grow huge amounts of crops. Luckily though, Rorikstead has rich soil. In fact, its soil is renowned for being almost unnaturally rich. Despite the harsh farming environment, the people of Rorikstead have made good use of their soil, providing supplies for the capital city of the hold, Whiterun. But why is Rorikstead so special? Why is their soil so fertile? They must be good farmers or have the gods' blessings. To even begin to attempt to explain this phenomenon, we must get to know the people that make up this productive farming settlement. Rorikstead is made up of 2 cottages, an inn, and a manor. We have Lemkill's farmhouse, where of course Lemkill resides along with his 2 daughters Britt and Sissel. They're twins, that's why they look identical. Lemkill runs his own farm without the help of his young daughters, much to his irritation. We have Cowflop Farmhouse, in which Annis and Raldith reside. They run Cowflop Farm, where they grow crops, and they also have 2 cows, whose dung they harvest and sell as fertilizer to the rest of the farms in the hold of Whiterun. Hence the name of their farm, Cowflop, meaning of course cow poo. There is an inn, Frost Fruit Inn. This is run by Mralki the innkeep, who is helped occasionally by his son Eric. Eric also helps Lemkill tend to his crops. Finally, we have Rorik's Manor, where the town healer Joanne Manette and the town owner Rorik reside. There is a 5th building called Lun's Hut, which is a walk away from the town, but it is unclear if this hut is associated with Rorikstead or not. It doesn't really play a part in this, but we will come back to it later, as we might find some strange connections and commonalities between Lun's Hut and Rorikstead. So let's begin. Let's find out who these people are running Rorikstead. Let's start at the top, shall we, with the big man himself, Rorik.
If you've got some business in Rorikstead, you should start by speaking to Juan.
Whoa, hold up.
Sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but Juan's the one who deals with people. I'm afraid I lost my charm years ago.
Damn, he seems not remotely interested in talking straight off the bat. We'll pester him as little as we need to. So has the war taken its toll on your settlement and its people?
Not yet anyway, though it certainly could. With most of the hold's fighting men committed to the war, there are fewer swords to keep the road safe from brigands and wild beasts. And of course, as the war drags on and supplies run low, our ample fields and stores of food will make a tempting target for desperate men. The best we can hope for is a swift end to the conflict. The longer the war goes on, the worse it will be for all of us, I'm afraid.
I noticed that you're carrying a sword. Were you a soldier? Did you fight in the Great War, Rorik?
Aye, that I did. I commanded a force of several dozen men, most of them levies from villages in this part of the hold. I damn near met my end in that war. An old merry soldier ran me through with his blade and left me for dead. A healer named Joanne saved my life. He's been my closest friend ever since. I tell you, that man is a miracle worker.
This is Rorikstead and your name is Rorik. Call me a conspiracy theorist, but was this town named after you?
Yes, that's right. Look around you. Most of the lands you see are mine. Most of this I purchased while my comrades were fighting in the south, helping the Empire against the Aldmeri Dominion. Back then, nothing would grow here, and so the land was worthless. Now, thanks to the hard work and the gods' blessings, our farms prosper.
Now that's pretty interesting. He said nothing would grow here, but now, as we know, it's prime real estate for farming. Interesting how soil could be made fertile in such a short time, especially with such primitive technology. So Rorikstead here is actually named after this guy Rorik. It makes sense. Rorikstead, which just means the farm of Rorik essentially, which is exactly what this is. Now the Great War ended 26 years before the events of the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. So at most, Rorikstead would be 26 years old. And this is where things start getting weird and we have to toy with the idea of Rorik being immortal. Isn't that fun? As throughout the history of the Elder Scrolls, Rorikstead is referenced by name, despite only being around for less than 3 decades if Rorik's word is to be trusted. There are 3 books that can be found in Skyrim. Firstly, the Songs of Skyrim. It's a book filled with the traditional folk songs of Skyrim. This contains a song named Ragnar the Red, during which Rorikstead is mentioned as a location. While there isn't a date on the book, it does mention that the song Ragnar the Red is a traditional song, meaning it's probably existed for more than 26 years. Secondly, we have a book called Atlas of Dragons. As we can see, this was published during the Second Era, which is 1156 years before the events of the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. And as we can see on this page, it names Rorikstead as a location. So Rorikstead is at least 1156 years old, not 26 years. Even better though, we have a book called The Holdings of Jarl Jarland, or Jarl Garland. I'm not sure how to say his name. Now this book doesn't have a publishing date, however, it does list all of the areas under the rule of Jarl Jarland, who was the first Jarl of Whiterun. One of his holdings is a place named Roriksteading, which means Rorik's farm, exactly the same as Rorikstead. Both of those names mean the same thing. Rorik's farm. Now, while we don't have a date on this book, get this. Jarl Jarland ruled Whiterun during the Merethic era, also known as the Mythic era depending on whose viewpoint you look at it from. Regardless, strap yourselves in because the Mythic/Merethic era ended 4,451 years before the events of the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Yet, Rorik claims that Rorikstead was named after him. So he is either a 4,000-year-old farmer, or he's lying, or he changed his name to fit with the name of the village. Whichever way it is, it's very strange. Very, very strange indeed. A lot of loose ends, but something that definitely needed to be brought to our attention. Now, Rorik, the immortal farmer king, mentioned a man called Joanne, and that we should speak to him. Hey mate, you got a second? Oh.
If you're thinking of setting up to farm, you picked the right place. Have you spoken to Eric? His father won't let him go out and seek his fortune in the world. Maybe you can help.
Who are you, Joanne? How did you end up living in Rorikstead?
Have you met Rorik? He owns these lands, and it's from him that our village gets its name. We've been friends for many years now. Rorik fought for the Empire in the Great War. He was gravely wounded, and so was brought before me. I was a healer then, you see. We were as close as kinsmen, and when Rorik returned home, I came with him. I'm happy to spend my twilight years here with my good friend.
This place is pretty open. How will you protect yourselves against the dragons? With your healing abilities? With your masses of cabbage?
How can we? We're a community of farmers, not fighting men. If not for the war, we might have enough guards in the hold to protect the settlements. That the dragons should return now is most unfortunate.
Indeed. Almost seems like prophecy. You've got some suspiciously fertile soil here despite the awful climate. Come on mate, what's your secret? Come on, what's going on?
Secret? What makes you think there's a secret? There are no secrets here, my curious friend. Our prosperity is simply the result of hard work, good fortune, and the blessings of the gods.
It's actually interesting because he seemed kind of defensive about the secret element of that question. Interesting he mentions the blessings of the gods. That will actually crop up a few times during this investigation. So Joanne seems like he's hiding something weird. He's relatively defensive and almost overly nice at the same time, a strange combination. Next we'll go and meet the innkeep Ralki and his son Eric.
If you need a meal or room, I've got both. I only take real coin here, no handouts and no bartering.
Well, Ralki actually has no unique dialogue that will progress the story, so let's go and speak to Eric.
Oh, did you need something?
Yes.
You look like you've seen your share of adventure. I envy you that. In fact, maybe you can help me with something.
What is it that you need?
I want to be an adventurer like you. My father says I can't. He says he needs me to stay here and work the farm. And even if he did let me be an adventurer, we couldn't afford to buy armor. His name is Meralki, and he's the innkeeper here. I hope you could change his mind.
Now there is actually an entire quest based around convincing Meralki to let his son Eric be an adventurer, but it really doesn't add to the narrative of this investigation at all, so we won't cover it. Eric, have you lived here your whole life?
Born and raised right here in Rorikstead. My father was a soldier. He fought in the Great War, and when it was over, he retired here to raise a family. My mother passed away when I was just a babe, so he did his best to raise me on his own. It's not the most exciting place in the world, but the people here work hard. They don't cause trouble for anyone.
Your crops seem to be thriving. How do you do it?
It's true. For as long as I can remember, our crops have always done well. I'm not sure whether it's the soil, climate, or the favor of the divines, but we've never had a poor harvest.
Interesting how Eric doesn't get defensive about the question. It's almost as if there was a secret, he doesn't know what it is. We can see Eric interact with his father on 2 separate occasions, reinforcing that Meralki wants Eric to stay and work at the farms in Rorikstead instead of becoming an adventurer.
Father, how old were you when you left home?
I know where this is going, son. As I've said many a time, the world is a dangerous place. You're much safer here at the farm with me.
But I don't want to be safe. I'm not afraid of the dangers out there. The only thing I'm afraid of is wasting my life on this farm.
Yes, that's your mother's side of the family talking. Just stay on for one more season, that's all I ask. I heard you sneaking around downstairs last night. Were you trying to break into my chest again, son? I've told you to leave it alone.
I just wanted to try on your old armor, from back when you were a soldier. I thought I might be old enough to wear it.
I've told you 100 times I locked that chest for a reason. I don't want you getting a head full of ideas about adventure and glory.
I'm old enough to decide how to live my life, and I'd be honored to wear your armor. If you just let me. I'm strong enough to handle it.
Strong, yes. But how clever are you? I tell you what. If you can open the lock on my chest, you can have everything in it.
I'll take your challenge. But if I win, I get to start a new life as an adventurer, and with no objections from you.
Now, while Eric becoming an adventurer means nothing to this curious case of Rorikstead, Meralki does mention a basement, which Frost Fruit Inn does not have. A secret basement might be something very real to this story, or it might be an oversight by the developers. And no, clipping through the floor revealed nothing. There is no trace of a basement anywhere. So that is suspicious, but very possibly something the developers forgot about rather than a subtle clue. Next we'll go and meet Ennis and Reldith, who run Cowflop Farm. We'll start off by speaking to Reldith. She seems to be in charge.
Did you see those guards? Get out of line and you'll have them to deal with.
No, actually, I didn't see those guards. Anyway, there is no way that you can eat through all of these leafy greens. Where do you sell your surplus crops, lady?
In Whiterun, mostly. Ennis handles the business arrangements, but I know that he has a few purchasers who give us a fair price. Ennis prides himself on his shrewd business schemes. For my part, I'm far happier working with cattle and crops than with people.
Intriguing! Your farm is doing well. You must be very proud.
Do I detect a bit of jealousy in your tone? I would hardly blame you. What calling could be more noble than this? I see in your eyes that you think I jest. I assure you I don't. I am proud, and rightfully so, of the work we do here. Working the soil with your hands, seeing your seeds take root and grow, tending a herd. There is a joy in honest labor you won't find elsewhere.
Yeah, Biz, I'm jealous of your thick croppage. A word invented by Carl Pilkington. It's interesting, she seems almost too proud of her crops. For now though, let's speak to Ennis. While we can't actually enter dialogue with him, he does drop some insightful lines.
Name's Ennis. If you've got friends who do business in Whiterun, they might know me. You talked to Reldith yet? She's like a mother to me. You here from the city? I visit Whiterun from time to time, mostly to make deals. Reldith is the hardest working farmer in Rorikstead, but I'm the one with the head for business.
So Ennis is the businessman in this duo, mentioning he travels to Whiterun quite often to sell his crops. He also says that Reldith is like a mother to him. More light is shed on this during a dialogue between the two characters.
Another fine day at work in the fields. I don't envy those city folk who miss out on the joys of working the land.
I'll tell you who I don't envy. Those poor children who lost their parents in this war.
Lives lost, crops burned, land ruined. There's no greater sin than war. And yet, you were an orphan, and you've made something of your life.
I was lucky. If you hadn't rescued me, I'd probably be a thief, a mercenary, or something even worse.
It's too fine a day to dwell on such things. Let's get back to work, and forget about wars and orphans for a while.
So Reldith actually adopted Ennis. She really is like a mother to him. I wonder why she adopted him. Perhaps she is just kind. Perhaps she couldn't find anyone to breed with. Or maybe she is infertile herself, but still wanted a child of her own. Hence adopting Ennis. Whichever way it is, they seem to be doing well. Finally, we'll meet Lemkill and his two daughters, Britt and Sissel.
I got enough troubles, so don't go adding to them. I spend every day tending the fields, and what do my daughters do? Nothing. Complain and caterwaul, sleep and eat. Useless. Do yourself a favor and don't have children. They're good for nothing at all.
Lemkill is a cruel man who has nothing to say during dialogue, but he sure as hell spews out a lot of heinous stuff about his daughters out of his mouth while walking around town. Just listen to these interactions with other townsfolk.
Those little girls of yours are growing like weeds, Lemkill.
Yes, and just like weeds, they're nothing but trouble.
Good day, Lemkill. I saw some nice dresses for your little girls while I was in Whiterun. I'd be happy to purchase them if you like.
We don't need your charity, Breton. If my girls deserve something nice, it'll be their father who buys it.
I'm not saying it's my business, but I have to ask. Why are you so cruel to your little girls?
You're right. It's none of your business. How about you keep your nose out of it?
You keep on like you are. You'll end up with two daughters who hate you.
Ha! And what would a witless oaf like you know about raising children? Curse my good-for-nothing daughters. My wife was twice the woman they'll ever grow to be. She gave her life birthing them. What a waste. Got something to say?
As you might have picked up, he does not like his daughters, as he mentions his wife died giving birth to them. Maybe that's why he despises them so much, because in his eyes, Britt and Sissel killed his wife. Well, I can't say that Lemkill has painted a particularly good picture of his daughters, so let's go and see what the little girls are actually like. If you can catch them, as they do just run about Rorikstead all day.
You're gonna get it, Sissel. Why? What did I do? I told you to weed the garden by sunset, and you didn't do it. Now you're in big trouble. Papa told you to do that, not me. Now leave me alone. Look at you. You're as filthy as a pig in a pen. I am not. You're lying. You smell like a pig's pen, too. What a stink. Have you been rolling in the dirt all day? You're a liar. I won't listen to you. Leave me alone.
Britt seems like a rather brutal little beast. Takes after her father. What else do you have to say, little lass?
If you beat up my sister, Sissel, I won't tell. Are you new around here? You should go to the inn if you need a place to stay. Sissel thinks she's so special. No way she's more special than me. I'm the older sister, by nearly 5 minutes. Sissel's barely worthy to walk in my shadow.
By the 9, poor Sissel. But poor little Sissel here might actually have some of the most interesting dialogue in the entire town.
Most days, I do all I can to stay away from my sister and my father. The beating's the same from either one. Someday soon I'll stop being afraid. Joanne is teaching me magic. He says I'm real good. I wish I could be an adventurer like you, and go wherever I want. I had a dream that there was a good dragon. He was old and gray, but he wasn't scary.
You what, mate? Having dreams about an old, friendly, grey dragon? I'm sorry, but is Sissel here having dreams about Paarthurnax? Paarthurnax, an old dragon? Paarthurnax, a grey dragon? Paarthurnax, a friendly dragon? Paarthurnax, the leader of the Greybeards that no one on Tamriel knows about except for the Greybeards themselves? This girl here in Rorikstead is having Farseer-like dreams of a keystone character in the prophecy of the end of time. I can confirm that is not a common, I would say, ability, dreaming about someone that actually exists that's part of a prophecy to do with the actual main quests of the game, and also someone that no one knows exists in the first place. So how? What? Who is this girl? What the I don't know. I do know that it's not normal. This girl, Sissel here, is special in some way, although how, I really don't know, and how it affects our investigation? Well, I'm not sure. It's just another weird loose end in the tale of Rorikstead. Now, there are 2 more things about this family I want to touch on briefly, and only briefly because I could not get them to trigger in-game, so whether they are fact or fiction, it is up for debate. Now, apparently, if you kill Brit through the use of console commands or mods, Sissel will actually thank you and give you gold as a reward. Again, I tried this and I could not get this to happen. If this were to be true though, it would be unbelievably obscure, as it would have dialogue revolving around an action which literally cannot be done in the game, which is of course killing a child. It can't be done. Children are immortal in Skyrim, but it does mean a lot less considering that I could not get this to trigger despite attempting for a few days. Secondly, apparently, if you kill the healer in the town Joanne, Lemkill will send a letter to you via a courier. Once you receive that letter, if you then punch his children and speak to him, he will give you gold as a reward. Now that's really messed up, but again, I could not get this to trigger despite spending 2 weeks trying to get this to work. And while I couldn't get either of those events to take place in-game, there are actually multiple reports online of this scenario taking place. So I cannot confirm that they do or do not exist. Luckily though, they don't actually add much to the investigation, it's just a reinforcement that this family is very unstable. Now, little Sissel here, the girl who can dream about prophetic materials such as Paarthurnax, actually has another secret, a secret that involves the town's healer Joanne. Every night from 6 PM to 8 PM, Sissel will go to Rorik's manor, alone. There she meets with Joanne. It might seem very strange at this point, a young girl meeting with an old man at nighttime alone, and while it is strange, it's not what you're thinking. If we hide ourselves, we can overhear some interesting conversation.
Joanne?
Yes, child?
I was just wondering, the next time we meet, do you think maybe you could teach me some fire magic? Nothing dangerous, maybe a candle lighting spell?
By the 8, keep your voice down. Do you want the entire village to learn our secrets?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you.
Shh, shh. It's fine, child. It's fine. But we must be cautious, What we do, the things I teach you, the others wouldn't understand.
I understand. I'm sorry. I just get so excited thinking about it. So, can we do some fire magic?
Most certainly not. But perhaps I can teach you how to put some candles out. We'll start there.
Ooh, wonderful! I can't wait!
Today, I'll teach you a useful spell that might just save your life. If you should ever fall into a river, you'll be very glad you learned it.
Oh, are you going to teach me how to turn into a mud crab?
Oh, it's much better than that. I will teach you how to breathe underwater, with no need to turn into one of those ugly creatures.
Wow! Then I could dive into a river and swim so far away that Britta and Father could never find me.
Now clear your mind and breathe deeply. Good concentration is very important for spell casting.
It would seem that Joanne here is teaching Sissel magic. Not only that, but no one in the town can know about it. Now I do understand how simple farmers wouldn't be too keen on an old man teaching children actual magic. It's a dangerous slope, especially in Skyrim. With the disaster of Winterhold, the Nords are wary of magic, even more so when being wielded, used and taught by an outsider such as a Breton healer, Joanne. But the way he says it makes it seem like there's something more to the magic. Like he's teaching her something very specific that she doesn't quite grasp. She wants to learn how to light a candle, but Joanne freaks out and tells her to keep quiet. He also seems to be more interested in alteration magic, saying he won't teach her fire magic, but he wants to teach her how to breathe underwater. Sissel must hold some magical powers that are unique to her. After all, she does dream of Parthenax, and she has been chosen by Joanne to be taught magic. It's almost as if he's passing on his knowledge to someone who will be able to replace him one day. But what did he do? What is he passing on? Well, he was a healer during the war, so is that what he's passing on? Surely the township wouldn't freak out over him teaching Sissel how to heal people. That's something useful, it's quite nice. But Joanne really does freak out. Just like my light switch, something here is off. I'll tell you what we should do. We should sneak around town and see what we can find. While the Frostfruit Inn and Lemkill's house don't yield anything obscure, Cowflop Farmhouse, where Ennis and Reldith reside, does. Inside, we can see it is most certainly not short of food stocks. This place is fit for a king. They must have one unbelievably productive farm. Anyway, next to the bed where Reldith sleeps, there is a soul gem. An empty, common soul gem. Given she's an Altmer, a race highly familiar with the nature of magic, she is probably the least suspicious person when it comes to owning a soul gem. However, in Rorik's manor, where Joanne and Rorik live, we can also find another soul gem, a petty soul gem. Joanne is a Breton and also a healer, so him owning a soul gem quite frankly isn't very surprising. It's what's found next to the soul gem that is suspicious. A book called The Spirit of the Daedra. It is a book written by a Daedra, not a Daedric prince, but a Daedra, which there are many forms of. But the book explains how men should treat Daedra, how Daedra see the race of man as prey, explains the different attributes and personalities of the varying Daedra. It essentially describes the will and thinking of the different species of Daedra, and it really emphasizes that the race of man is prey to have their souls harvest. Now, let's approach this objectively and not get ahead of ourselves. The soul gems aren't black soul gems, so they cannot contain human souls. They can only contain the souls of creatures. Both of them are empty, so no souls have actually been taken. We must remember that Joanne is an old and well-versed healer. I'm sure he's done a fair share of reading, so owning a book like this isn't that shocking. Or is it? He doesn't have a library of books, or even a bookshelf. He has one book. Just the one. This isn't a drop in the ocean of his reading texts. This is his entire reading texts. Just this book. Another chilling factor about this book is that there are only 3 copies of it in Skyrim. One can be found in the Arcanaeum at the College of Winterhold, which is the lexiconic nexus of all scholarly learnings and wizardry texts. It makes sense that such a book would be found there. Another one can be found in Apocrypha, the Plane of Oblivion belonging to Hermaeus Mora, the Daedric Prince of Fate, Knowledge and Memory. It makes sense that such a book can be found there. And the final copy of the book, in all of Skyrim, can be found tucked away in the house of Rorik of Rorikstead, a quaint little farming village. This does not make sense for this book to be here. Alarm bells are beginning to ring, and loudly. Now, the most common explanation, and what I believe to be the accurate explanation for this, and the extraordinarily potent soil that can be found solely in Rorikstead, is that people are being sacrificed to the Daedra in exchange for fertile soil. Get your tinfoil hats on, people. It's a trade, if you will. This theory actually does have legs to stand on, and I do believe that only 2 people in the town know about it. But who are they sacrificing? Fertile women, that's who. We learned that Lemkill's wife, Sissel, and Britt's mother died during childbirth. She bore children, she was fertile. We also learned that Moralki's wife, Eric's mother, died when he was just a babe. She just had a baby, she was fertile. 2 fertile women who died miraculously despite Joanne Minette being present in town, who is of course a healer. Not only does he have medical knowledge but magical knowledge of healing, yet they weren't saved. There is only one fully grown, matured woman in the town. This is Reldith. Reldith, who adopted Ennis, which would make it more likely that she is infertile, hence the adoption. Of course, you don't have to be an infertile person to adopt a child, but it could very well explain why she is still alive and hasn't been sacrificed to the Daedra in exchange for fertile soil, because she's quite simply not fertile. I also have reason to believe that only Reldith and Joanne are in on the whole sacrificing thing. They're the only 2 people in the town that know about it. When we walk and talk around the town of Rorikstead, the only 2 people that get rather defensive about how well the crops are growing is Joanne and Reldith. Joanne, of course, the Daedra book-owning healer that can't heal and is also teaching this creepy farseer child Sissel magic behind the rest of the villagers' backs. Joanne also mentions the blessings of the gods, but never explains which. Commonly, the term gods would refer to the Daedra. However, he owns one book about the Daedra. Now, I did look into this, and throughout Tamriel's history, the Daedra have been referred to and worshipped as gods. So Joanne saying he has the blessings of the gods could mean the blessings of the Daedra just as much as it could mean the blessings of the Daedra. A very small but subtle detail that can actually change the entire investigation when inspected properly. The rest of the townsfolk, when asked about their crops, are rather blasé. They just go, yeah, it's weird, we have good soil. Don't know what it's about, but it's good. Whereas Joanne and Reldith are the only 2 to get defensive and the only 2 to go on about all the hard work and the gods. And I do have some more evidence that Reldith is in on the Sacrificial Farmers Pact with the Daedra. Check out these 2 conversations between Reldith and Ennis.
The way our crops have been growing, Rorikstead must have the richest soil in the hold.
Maybe we should start selling the soil along with the dung. We could make a tidy profit.
Who in their right mind would pay for dirt? You'd get laughed out of Whiterun for even trying it.
Hey, people paid money for stranger things. Take our cow dung. We sell that by the wagon load.
When you're rich, you can waste as much money as you like on far-fetched business ideas. In the meantime, there's a farm to run.
Have you given my idea any more thought? You said you'd let me know yesterday, and that obviously didn't happen.
Oh, I don't know. Yes, we'd make more money, but I don't like the idea of you traveling alone out there with a war and talk of dragons.
Come on now, we discussed that. I wouldn't be traveling all of Skyrim. It'd just be to Whiterun and back, that's it.
Tomorrow. I'll let you know tomorrow.
Now, Ennis, being the businessman that he is, he wants to sell the soil to the rest of Whiterun to make more money. After all, it's just soil, it's everywhere. If people want to buy dirt, why would you not sell dirt? It's dirt, it's everywhere, it's free, it's in the ground, there's heaps of it, sell it. Yet, Reldith is very hesitant and cautiously dismissive of the idea, almost as if she knows what's gone into the soil. She's fine with selling the cow poo. It's almost as if no human sacrifice went into the cow poo. The soil, however, no, that's a different story altogether. Reldith also says that she doesn't like the idea of Ennis traveling to Whiterun by himself to sell the soil. That's fair enough, it's a kind gesture. It also, however, has less legs to stand on than a snake does. Sorry, Reldith, you dope, but Ennis does that trip already, all the time, to sell the surplus vegetables to Whiterun. Her reason for dismissing the idea of selling the soil is something that Ennis does all the time anyway. He travels to Whiterun constantly to sell vegetables. Yet, you don't want to sell the soil because it would entail him walking to Whiterun to sell the soil, that thing he does anyway. You slipped up, Biz, gotcha. She knows the value of the soil. She knows the sacrifice that went into the soil. And believe it or not, we are actually led to believe that not even Rorik knows about the soil sacrifice. Check out this conversation between Rorik and Joanne.
The last wheat shipment fetched a fine price at market.
Well done. I don't know where I'd be without you, my old friend.
It pleases me to know that I can still be of use even in the twilight of my life.
Looks like we're in for quite a harvest. We've had better luck with our planting than any village in the hold.
Luck? I think it has more to do with the hard work and good soil.
Maybe you're right. Even so, I can't help wondering if some other force is at work here.
See, even Rorik is suspicious of his own farms, and Joanne quickly jumps to drop the hard work and good soil thing. Which is fair enough, because he knows the sacrifice that's gone into the soil. Put yourself in his shoes. You've been sacrificing friends of yours to get fertile soil, and then everyone's walking around like, dude, we're so lucky to get this fertile soil. You'd react the same way as Joanne, be like, it's not luck, mother farmer, but I also can't tell you what it is. So it's just hard work and the blessings of the gods. Remember, the soil was crap 20 years ago. How did you get the soil so damn good, Joanne? Why did those fertile women die, Joanne? Could you not heal them? What are you teaching Sissel, Joanne? What are you preparing her for? What's with this book on the Daedra, Joanne? Seems like a nice guy until you poke around town for 200 hours. Now check this out, have a listen to this conversation between Reldith and Joanne, the two suspects.
I picked up a set of fine silver brushes in the city, Reldith. I thought you might be interested.
How thoughtful. I'll come take a look after supper.
Wink wink, nudge nudge, come around to my place later tonight so we can talk about silverware. Yeah! Oh, hello, infertile yet alive Ultima who comes up with oxymoronic excuses for not selling soil and who also has soul gems next to her bed. Yes, come over under the cover of darkness and look at some silverware I bought. Anyone else find this dialogue as suspicious as a glove that fits? So from all this, we can boil down that Reldith and Joanne sacrifice the souls of fertile women to unknown Daedra or an unknown Daedric prince in exchange for unnaturally ultra-fertile soil. Joanne is training Sissel secretly and probably not even to her knowledge, so that one day she can continue on the Pact of Fertility. Now there are two more things that we're going to address. One is, at least in my eyes, dismissible, and the other is the juiciest new discovery imaginable. Let's start off with the one I'm going to dismiss. For this though, we'll need to go back to the very beginning of the game. To the very beginning. In the carriage ride at the start of the game, we share the cart with a horse thief named Lokir. He says this.
Hey, what village are you from, horse thief?
Why do you care?
A Nord's last thoughts should be of home.
Rorikstead. I'm from Rorikstead.
Lokir is from Rorikstead and was caught trying to steal a horse and cross the border of Skyrim into Hammerfell. Now, people surmised that Lokir was running from Rorikstead trying to escape. He'd learned something, he'd found something out, people wanted him dead. And to add to the oddity, he has no house in Rorikstead, nor does anyone in Rorikstead mention his name. Which all sounds exciting, but I think that's been blown way out of proportion. To me, all this means is that he hasn't lived in Rorikstead for years. The developers probably didn't even think about it, someone probably just punched in a random town name for him to say. And the most important point, just because he's from Rorikstead most certainly does not mean he's lived in Rorikstead anytime recently, in the same way you can live in Australia for 20 years and still be from England, for example. I truly don't believe Lokir saying he's from Rorikstead has any value to this investigation. He also says that he tried to steal a horse, so he was already crossing the border when trying to steal the horse.
Lokir of Rorikstead. No, I'm not a rebel! You can't do this!
Halt!
You're not gonna kill me!
Archers! Anyone else feel like running?
Building off of this though, another point that people bring up is Bethesda's staff created a preview mod called Lokir's Tomb. It was essentially a tutorial for people to follow while using the creation kit to make mods. As we know, Lokir was from Rorikstead, however, his tomb that they built in this mod was built in Riverwood. People look at this and go, well, if he's from Rorikstead, shouldn't his tomb be in Rorikstead? Well, maybe if it was canon, but this is not canon. It's an internal modification created as a walkthrough guide for people using the creation kit. It's not a subtle lore hint for people following the story of Loki, and given that it's not in the game, we can't use it as evidence for anything. Again, Loki is the first person we see die in Skyrim when he tries to run away from the execution. Some developer probably had 3 hours on a Friday afternoon to build the mod and just chose a random location and a random character who's died in everyone's game's playthrough to build Loki's tomb. So no, I don't think Loki's tomb is anything to get excited about, and even if it was, it's non-canonical and therefore means nothing. And with that said, I believe that Loki is irrelevant to the Rorikstead investigation anyway. Now the final piece of the puzzle. In fact, this might even be a keystone to the whole theory. I have actually touched on this briefly 2 years ago in my CCC video for Whiterun, but at the time I didn't understand the full scope of what this means. Now remember, at the beginning of the video I briefly mentioned Lund's hut as a possible building belonging to the township of Rorikstead. Well, we'll be heading there. And while we still don't know if Lund's hut is actually on Rorik's land or not, we will find some eerie similarities in narrative. As we can see, outside the house there are a few skeevers knocking around, not a common sight, but this will be explained in a minute. Down the hill, just a trot, we can find a small cairn, a pile of stones, with various items resting on it, almost as if they were offerings in remembrance. Some flowers, some apples, and what appears to be a wedding ring. For now though, we'll head inside Lund's hut. More skeevers. On the bed we'll find one deceased Lund, the owner of the hut. At first glance it would appear that the skeevers killed him, but this isn't the case. If we look on the ground, there are multiple bowls with meat in them. The same way you would lay out food for your pets. These skeevers were actually his pets. So how did Lund die? Well, on the table there is a vial of poison. It would appear that Lund drank the poison and committed suicide. But what would trigger such a descent into a dark despair where suicide was the only way out? Well, remember outside, there was what seemed to be a little altar or shrine. We can deduce that Lund's wife passed away, hence the shrine with the flowers and what we assume to be a wedding ring. This loss sent Lund into a depressive down spiral and ultimately led to him taking his own life. So Lund's wife died, even though around the corner lives Joanne the healer. Curious how it was Lund's wife that died. His wife, a nice, fertile woman, dead, mysteriously, unhealable despite there being a healer around the corner. And oh, aren't these crops just growing so nicely? This isn't 100%, but this sure is suspicious and draws commonalities with the occult events that we have surmised to have taken place in Rorikstead. Now remember the book we found in Rorik's Manor, The Spirit of the Daedra? Well, wouldn't it be interesting if we found some more strange books in Lund's hut? Oh, wouldn't that be something? And would you look at that? He even has a well-stocked bookshelf. Well, I went through all of the books, and there's absolutely nothing remotely interesting or connective to the current sacrificial plot of Rorikstead. It would have been so nice, but alas, it just isn't so. Luckily for you though, ya boy Camel went the extra step, as always, and found something really spooky, weird, and relevant. If we clip through the walls of Lund's hut's interior, we will be met by something to behold. A heavily fleshed out exterior of an interior cell. Something that we basically never see. Why do we never see it? Because it's pointless placing assets outside the walls of an enclosed interior cell. No one is ever going to see this unless they do what I did and clip through the walls of Lund's hut for no good reason whatsoever. So the fact that the exterior is being built into the outside of the interior, it's unbelievably odd. It's also really odd that this cell's exterior has a sickly green haze to it, one I don't recall ever seeing before, and it is also pointless, as the inside of Lund's hut, where the players actually are, has a completely different lighting setting. Yet this outside area, again, has a completely different light setting to the inside of the interior. So someone's done this on purpose. Someone's given this exterior of the interior of Lun's hut an ill swampish smog and a purple skyline. And dare I say it, it almost looks like it's part of a Daedric plane of oblivion. But this is beyond weird, and given the surrounding circumstances of Lun's hut, these strange yet super specific and completely hidden details are very suspicious, but at the same time highlight nothing in particular. Along with all of these rocks, there is actually a barrel that's been placed just behind the house. Unfortunately, this is just a static barrel and cannot be interacted with. You'll be glad to know though, there is one last thing, the most important aspect of this outside area of Lun's hut's interior. And you've probably noticed it by now and wondered, what the hell is that? Well, there is a book that spawns near the rocks, falls into the nothingness, then spawns once more and seems to loop eternally, falling and returning. Straight away, this is uncannily odd. It's getting weirder and weirder by the minute. But what book is this? Out of the 470 different books that can be found in Skyrim, which one is this? The tension begins to mount, and it's time to find out. Of course, the Book of the Daedra. Not remotely alarming in the slightest. Really, out of all the books in Skyrim, that's 470 different books, this one is about the Daedra. If your suspectometer is not off the bloody dial right now, you need to get that thing repaired. This is actually beyond cognitive comprehension how complex and interwoven this all is. The investigation of Rorikstead is beginning to create a bedlam in my brain. Now this book, the Book of the Daedra, explains the different Daedric princes. So let's sit back, relax for a second, and have a read and see if any of their descriptions reflect anything we've seen throughout the video. Azura, whose sphere is dusk and dawn, the magic in-between realms of twilight known as Moonshadow, mother of the rose and queen of the night sky. Nope, nothing interesting. Boethia, whose sphere is deceit and conspiracy, and the secret plots of murder, assassination, treason, and unlawful overthrow of authority. Not really ringing any bells. Clavicus Vile, whose sphere is the granting of power and wishes through ritual invocations and pact. Ding 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 ding, alarm bells going off. Granting power and wishes, granting the power to grow crops in dead soil through ritual invocations and pacts. That sounds like our baby. Now let's keep reading anyway, just to be super thorough. Hermaeus Mora, whose sphere is scrying of the tides of fate of the past and future as read in the stars and heavens, and in whose domain are the treasures of knowledge and memory. Nope. Hircine, whose sphere is the hunt, the sport of Daedra, the great game, the chase, known as the huntsman and the father of man-beasts. Nope. Malakath, whose sphere is the patronage of the spurned and ostracized, the keeper of the sworn oath and the bloody curse. Nah. Mehrunes Dagon, whose sphere is destruction, change, revolution, energy, and ambition. It's not a strong one, but energy maybe? Giving the soil energy to grow plants doesn't sound right, but kinda makes sense, but not really. Mephala, whose sphere is obscured by mortals, known by the names Webspinner, Spinner, and Spider, whose only consistent themes seem to be interference in the affairs of mortals for her amusement. Nope. Meridia, whose sphere is obscured to mortals, who is associated with the energies of living things. Now I do believe that is an obscure way of naming necromancers, which of course isn't what we're looking for. Molag Bal, whose sphere is the domination and enslavement of mortals, whose desire is to harvest the souls of mortals and to bring mortal souls within his sway by spreading seeds of strife and discord in the mortal realms. While it does clearly state he likes to harvest souls and also spread seeds, which could be a little clue there, farmers' seeds, this is not likely at all, as Molag Bal harvests souls by making the races of men destroy each other, and not by granting plentiful harvests. Namira, whose sphere is the ancient darkness known as the spirit Daedra, ruler of sundry dark and shadowy spirits, associated with spiders, insects, slugs, and other repulsive creatures which inspire mortals with an instinctive revulsion. Nocturnal, whose sphere is the night and darkness, who is known as the Night Mother. Nope. Periite, whose sphere is the ordering of the lowest orders of oblivion, known as the Taskmasters. Nope. Sanguine, whose sphere is hedonistic revelry and debauchery and passionate indulgences of darker nature. Nope. Sheogorath, whose sphere is madness and whose motives are unknowable. Probably not. Sheogorath's a bit of a cop-out because you can use him as an explanation for anything and just go, oh, it's crazy, it's Sheogorath. And finally, Venema, whose sphere is the realm of dreams and nightmares, and from whose realm issues forth evil omens. No. Now the rest of the book just talks about Malakath creating an artifact Scourge and how if any other Daedra uses it, they'll be purged to Oblivion's void streams, which is completely irrelevant to the tale of Rorikstead. So, out of all of the Daedric princes, Clavicus Viles seems to fit the bill, granting powers and wishes through ritual invocations and pacts. Now that sounds nice enough, but as we know, Clavicus Vile is a sick and twisted Daedra, forging pacts with mortals that contain small print, or pacts that are completely misinterpreted by the mortals. Joanne could have easily made a pact with Clavicus Vile for fertile soil, and not fully understood what would have to be given up in return, as is the case with just about every pact made with Clavicus Vile. And while none of this is concreted into the lore, I do believe that Rorikstead has fertile soil because they sacrifice fertile women to Clavicus Vile in exchange for fertile soil. Joanne and Reldith are the only two that know about this, and Joanne is training Sissel to take the reins one day. That, to me, is the most sensible boiling down of the information we've uncovered here in Rorikstead. But I must admit, there are many loose ends. Like, why is Rorikstead listed as being owned by a Jarl that ruled Whiterun over 4,000 years ago? Yet Rorik states it's named after him, after he bought the land at the very most 26 years ago. Is Rorik immortal? Probably not, given he has no idea about the magical pact Joanne and Reldith have with a Daedra of some form, most possibly Clavicus Vile. And what's going on with Moralki and the non-existent basement? Do they sacrifice people down there? But if so, surely he would know about it, and we have no reason to believe that Moralki knows anything about the Sacrificial Soil Pact. Also, what the actual heavens is with Sissel and having Farseer-like visions and dreams about Paarthurnax? I mean, of all things, Paarthurnax, one of the most important characters in all of Skyrim, and one that no one knows exists save the Greybeards. Why is she having dreams about him and listing features specific to him? Is Sissel something much bigger and much more important? It's weird stuff. And of course, what was going on in Lun's hut with that falling book and the exterior of the interior being fleshed out and having a green tinge with a purple sky? That really is something you never see. Even when you look for it, you'll never find it, save for Sheogorath's secret doorway, which I've already made a video on. So, Rorikstead, what a mess. Though I do have to say, what an astoundingly fleshed out town. While there are too many loose ends for my liking, the amount of NPC to NPC unique dialogue is unmatched by any other location. Everyone has something to say to everyone else. And well, it really has led to one of the most complex, interwoven, and almost unfollowable tales I've ever encountered in Skyrim. So I do hope that you've enjoyed the journey, the discovery, and the complex township of Rorikstead and their weird ways. The 4,000-year-old town that's been around for 26 years? Lol, what? Exactly. The basement that doesn't exist, a girl dreaming of one of the main protagonists, sacrificing women for good soil, a book behind a rock through a wall, I mean, the list goes on. Rorikstead is too much for me, and after spending literally over 200 hours making this video from start to finish, I'll gladly not come back here, at least for now. Now be sure to let myself and others know what your theories and conclusions are as to all of the strange cases brought forth throughout this video. Was it meant to be like this? Was there meant to be a quest bigger than this that would tie everything together? Very strange indeed. If you do have any information, facts, evidence, speculation, theories, or anything to do with Rorikstead, be sure to leave a comment. If you have any ideas for something that should be covered in an Elder Scrolls Detective series video, be sure to let me know. I'll look into whatever strange and wonderful topics you present. If you enjoyed this video, please do me a kindness and leave a like, it makes the video look good. And of course, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more videos similar to this one, please subscribe. It helps me know that people are interested in these kind of videos and in the long run will result in more of them. Be sure to click the little bell icon next to the subscribe button right here on YouTube so you are notified when new Elder Scrolls Detective videos are uploaded. Now, other Elder Scrolls Detective video links can be found down in the description. Down there is also a link to my social medias. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, and if you'd like to support the channel in a more personal way, you can become a heroic patron on, of course, Patreon. As I'm sure you know, all of my time and energy goes into making these videos that I create for you to enjoy, so your support is most appreciated and welcomed in any and all forms. Feel free to check out the playlist on screen. Thank you very much for watching, thank you for supporting the channel, and I'll see you very shortly in the next video. I'll see you there soon.